Hey you guys, this is Dr. Traveler here with Dr. Run Think Pray, and I'm kind of in a different setting today with a different camera. We've got carpets being cleaned, and so hopefully the audio and everything is okay. I just wanted to get this done. So this week, in going with our rotation, is helping with spiritual health, and what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is words, okay? And the reason why I thought of that is this week I've had a lot of interesting comments from people really in the last few months about words and whether they really are effective, whether they have the power that some people say. I heard some comments that we give them the power and so they really don't have any power. You know, it was interesting. I remember listening again, and I've talked a little bit about Wayne Dyer. I remember him saying, you can't get wet from the word water. And I've thought a lot about that because I also remember a story. So there's this guy named Daniel Dale, and shout out to the mayor. We called him the mayor. He was this guy in my class in chiropractic school. Just one of the most, those guys that just are amazing. We called him the mayor because he was late for like every class. And the reason why is because he was out talking to somebody, so we always joked and said, well, of course he's late. He's out shaking hands and kissing babies. But the mayor, or Danny, I always called him the mayor, so that's what I'll call him here. The mayor, I was talking to him one day, and he's just one of these guys that always makes you feel good, And at the time, I had a sore neck, and so he came up and we were just talking, and he said, hey, what's going on? How are you feeling? And I said, oh, not good. I said, my neck is killing me. And he just, really sets off. It was not this little reaction. He really, in fact, he almost like physically grabs me and he looks me in the face and he goes, don't you ever say that. Don't you give that injury that much power that it's going to kill you. And I said, well, come on. It's just an expression. And he said, and I remember him just looking at me with these eyes, and the mayor goes, words have power. And I've thought a lot about it. I thought about it at that point, but it was from that point on, and you can ask my kids, that is my line to them. Whenever they say something, whenever they say I can't or whatever, I tell them, words have power. And they really do. And so I know, again, I heard people say, well, we're the ones who give them the power. So if you don't subscribe to that thought, it's kind of like if someone is offensive to you, then you can choose to let that offend you, or you can say, I'm going to choose not to bring that in. But the truth of the matter is our words have power. There's scripture in that, they talk about the ship in the Bible, and the New Testament talks about a little member, which is just with a ship, that it's guided around by just a small guide. I don't remember, udder, whatever it's called. Anyway, but it just talks about this little tiny thing in the bottom of the ship that if you just turn that a little bit, you'll turn the entire ship. And that's our tongue, sharpness of the tongue. There's a lot of that. And so I am a believer that our words do have power, and we do give them power, and sometimes we give them inappropriate power. But there's really two aspects about our words that I wanted to talk about today on a spiritual aspect, and really this again could be physical or mental. But number one, self-talk, okay? And I don't care who you talk to, any self-help guru or whatever, you listen to whoever, they all talk about self-talk. And I think that it is just so important. And to me, when we talk again scriptural, when we look in the Old Testament, so this brings in the beliefs of all sorts of people, anyone who believes in the Old Testament, we hear the story of Moses. And we hear about Moses in talking to God. And after Moses gets done talking with God, he essentially says, Lord, who do I say is sent me? What should I tell them about you? And what does God say? God says, tell them that I am sent you, I am. And then he says, I am that I am. And people can take it for however they want. Those of the Christian faith, we believe that Jesus Christ is the great I am, so they say that I am. But I honestly believe that the Lord could have used all sorts of different names. He's got, I mean, you read in Scripture that there are, I don't know how many names that the Lord has, but he chose to say, I am. And so I think that at that point, God was trying to, number one, help Moses, because Moses had a lot of self-doubt. He was kind of saying, I don't speak well. I'm not a powerful person. What am I going to do? And I think God, right in that moment, was saying, listen, I am one with you. You are my son. But not only that, so when it comes to that, I've thought a lot about this and why he chose to say that and why this matters to us. And to me, I now go with this. God was telling Moses, and God is telling us, that when you say I am, you need to be careful what you say at that point. And the reason why is because whatever you say at that moment, you should be comfortable to say about God, God himself, because he's saying, so if you were to say something like, I am stupid, or I can't do it, you can kind of trade that. So would you ever say that God is stupid or that God can't do it? No, we use words like, with God, all things are possible. And I think he's trying to tell us in that moment that anytime you say, I am, it needs to be followed by something of power and of majesty, and something that you would say about God himself. And I think that's one of the best examples for us. And I know this is not a new thought, but it may be to some people. I know when I talk to different patients and youth that I work with and people that I talk to, this is kind of an interesting concept. And some people are uncomfortable with that because they're basically saying, I am God. I am part with God, and I am a believer of that we are the sons and daughters of God. And so in a sense, you can say that is very true. So be careful and thoughtful about how you talk about yourself. And whatever you say about yourself, you should be comfortable enough repeating that same thing about God. So that's thought number one. Thought number two, it seems like we are bombarded, so using words with other people. There's definitely today, and has always been, I remember my parents talking to me and saying, kids these days just don't have respect in their words. They swear a lot. They use a lot of vulgarities, and you could say that it's getting worse. I believe that it's always been a problem. I don't necessarily think it's getting better or worse. It just is. It is a challenge because there's so many people who don't recognize, again, the power of their words. As I listen to other people on YouTube and social media, it becomes a very popular thing, and it seems like some people, especially if you're trying to motivate, they somehow get this idea that they need to use vulgar or what we refer to as swear words. And listen, I know that it definitely comes down to, again, what we give our power to. There are swear words and vulgarities in other languages that if you were to hear them, it wouldn't matter because you don't even know what they're saying. But there's a power in those words. And so I would just recommend to anyone, if offensive language, and again, offensive is subjective, but if it feels like you are choosing to use words to shock and to offend, I would recommend against that. I think that those who are most powerful, most inspired, and remember, inspired means in spirit, those who are trying to be conscious of other people and to help and to love should use words that are positive and uplifting and powerful. And also remember that if you're really trying to make a change amongst other people, why would you choose to use words that automatically offend or turn off a portion of your audience? I would just recommend against that. And if it is a habit, Habits are sometimes difficult. Some people will say, well, that's just me. That's what I choose to use. And I would just, again, reflect upon the words that you're using and know that they do have power, and to use them properly and to use them with love. That is my recommendation today. Use your words carefully because they do have a lot of power. And this is Dr. Traveler with Dr. Run, Think, Pray talking about the power of words today. And I am signing out.